where it was announced on Sunday that Kellen Moore will not return as the offensive coordinator, and it took about 8 hours for him to get a new job. What this means is that it is very possible that Mike McCarthy will take over the play calling responsibilities in Dallas. Our buddy Dan Orlovsky had these thoughts.
They have to hire an offensive coordinator. You're firing yourself if you don't. This is a team for 2 years in a row that's got clock management issues. Now we're going to take the head coach who's struggled with clock management issues and give him the burden of being a play caller. So 100% hire an offensive coordinator.
So it's worth pointing out, because Dan and I did the exercise this morning, they will hire an offensive coordinator. That doesn't mean that person will call the plays. And you were going through it all. Head coaches, offensive-minded head coaches calling plays at this point is not rare in the NFL. It's almost 50-50, right?
There are 28 teams that currently have head coaches. Now, if we assume McCarthy's going to call the plays in Dallas and Frank Reich's going to call the plays in Carolina, that means 14 of the 28 head coaches are offensive play callers as well. So, yes, it's very, very common. And that's just, again, that's all coaches. Like, there's some defensive head coaches that call defensive plays.
Right.
But it allows, the coaches that do it think it allows them some degree of control over the game, right? You can dictate the action to some extent. So that's why it's appealing. And it seemed like McCarthy missed doing it.
And he did it in Green Bay.
He did for a time. There were times where he did and times when he didn't.
Yeah, toward the end of it, they took it away from him.
Right. So here's what I found myself thinking about this morning. And Dan has made the point that the contract is set up in such a way that Mike McCarthy might not be the only one in a prove it or it's over in Dallas season. This might apply to the head coach. In fact, I think we all believe it does apply to the head coach. Might it apply to the quarterback as well?
There's no question about it in my mind. If Dak Prescott can't prove that he's the guy, then I think the Cowboys will look to transition away from him. But at that point, that's Jerry Jones punting on competing for a championship with this core of players. And I'm not sure that he's ready to do that because, as I've said in the past, Jerry Jones ain't buying green bananas. I think that he looks at Dak Prescott as a good quarterback, but he's a guy that has to have everything in place in order to compete and win at the highest levels. Which in lies the rub, because when you go up against teams like San Francisco or teams like the Philadelphia Eagles, you are not going to be the more talented team, and you need your quarterback or your head coach to be the difference. And in this situation, I think it's easier to find a head coach that can get you there rather than find a replacement for what Dak Prescott's bringing to the party.
So Marcus, again, the former Cowboy, and we always associate you on this show with all the things in Dallas. I think it's not even worth asking, is Mike McCarthy's job on the line next season? That seems to be quite obviously the answer is yes. Do you believe the quarterback his job is on the line next season in Dallas as well?
Yeah, the decision got to be made, G, and it's based on his performance this year. And Chris mentioned the San Francisco 49ers in the playoffs. They have no more pressure than from anybody but within their division with the team that's about to play in the Super Bowl. You got to determine how far behind you are of the Philadelphia Eagles and what Howie Roseman has done with building a roster with a young quarterback that they probably going to have to pay this year, but still will be able to cap maneuver and keep some of those players obviously having that talent that's around him. Now, you lose a few things, obviously, when you sign a quarterback, and that's what we've been alluding to. When Dak got the money, there were parts of this roster that would have to be overcome by his ability and his play, and he has not ascended to that. But I also go to the other side of watching Dak Prescott play this year. And I know we talked about the Dallas Cowboys, and G, me and you had fights all season long about the Cowboys and what they were and what they weren't. And they definitely overachieved after they lost Dak Prescott. But I continuously said this roster is not good enough. I wasn't comparing them to the rosters in the NFC. I was comparing them to the roster that was in their own division. It was not good enough. When you talk about talent, when you talk about guys that just make plays after catch, like Himbo sent me a stat, this needed to be an offense where Dak Prescott could get the ball out of his hands and guys could make plays with yards after the catch. This needed to be a high-volume play-action football team because they didn't have a lot of weapons on the outside that you would consider one-on-one wins and matchups. Look no further than Philly. They got all of that. And they got a quarterback that's athletic enough to get them out of trouble. That was the vaunted San Francisco 49ers defense we watched them put up 31 against. I'm talking about the Philadelphia Eagles, and their quarterback didn't play well. Think about that. Think about where Dallas was at 13-3 when Dak Prescott entered this league to where they are now. This team is nowhere near being good enough to win a Super Bowl, let alone start talking about what they'll be when Mike McCarthy start calling plays.
All right, we have much more to say about all of that as we continue the football. Obviously, 2 teams still with a chance to win the championship and everybody else with a lot of decisions to make, including that something is an overreaction. People are saying officiating cost Cincinnati the AFC championship. Is that an overreaction?
As it always is, yes. The officiating did not cost Cincinnati the AFC championship. But first of all, that underrates the job the Kansas City defense did, by the way, in the second half. How many times did Burrow get the ball back and you thought to yourself, okay, here we go, right? This is where the Bengals take over. And Kansas City was able to shut them down over and over and over again. There were calls early in the game that went Cincinnati's way that had the crowd in Kansas City all ticked off. Officiating is a game condition. You either overcome it or you don't. It did not cost Cincinnati. There were other things that did.
That is always Dan's position. Next, with the hiring of Kellen Moore as the offensive coordinator in L.A., if people are saying Justin Herbert's going to be the MVP next year, is that an overreaction?
No, it's not an overreaction. How many times did Tannenbaum stand here last offseason and say he was going to be MVP this year? He has that kind of ability. Kellen Moore has a proven track record of scoring points, and Justin Herbert and Kellen Moore could be an outstanding match. I think obviously as we go into next season, we'll see how the offseason unfolds, what the Chargers do at wide receiver, what kind of team they put around Justin Herbert. But, yeah, he has that kind of ability. I don't think it's an overreaction to say that.
And finally, with the news that Brock Purdy, coming off of the injury the other day to the elbow, may need surgery, may be out 6 months or so. If I were to say the 49ers quarterback next year is on their roster right now, is that an overreaction?
It's not an overreaction because they look at Brock Purdy and Trey Lance both as good, viable options for the future. Now, they're both going to be coming off significant injury, so it's hard to say exactly, which if either of them will be ready to go. And yes, there will be speculation, and justifiably so, about veteran additions, some really high-profile veteran additions in San Francisco. But we can't assume that'll happen, and we do know that the 49ers feel good about Brock Purdy and Trey Lance long-term.
Well, when you say super high-profile, the 2 most legendary and accomplished quarterbacks currently in the sport are both from Northern California, right? We know that. We know that Tom Brady is from there. We know that Aaron Rodgers is from there. And so let's engage in a little reckless speculation because it's fun and why not? Aaron Rodgers isn't going to San Francisco. The Green Bay Packers would rather cancel the rest of their schedule than trade Aaron Rodgers to their arch rival.
Get an awful lot.
But Tom Brady can go wherever he wants to go. Marcus, does Tom Brady to San Francisco make sense to you? You put Brady on the 49ers next year. Are they the favorite to win the Super Bowl?
No, they're not. And listen, did we not watch this game against the Philadelphia Eagles when they couldn't block a soul?
Yeah.
What is the main problem with Tom Brady? Are you going to fix the interior of this offensive line? Or are you going to tell Tom Brady, hey, man, we're going to hand it off a lot, but come here and play? And also, guys, who is the San Francisco 49ers downfield threat? I want y'all to tell me who that guy is, because Tom Brady likes to push the ball downfield off of play action. Kyle Shanahan is phenomenal. We all know that. We all know he called plays at a very high level. But does Tom Brady really fit this? Especially with what we saw happen to them against Philly. Now, if they revamp an offensive line and they're going to go more drop back play action, and he going to kind of formulate back into being who he was when he had Matt Ryan and Julio Jones, I'm all for it. But I don't see it.
All right, let me try and sell my friend Mr. Canty here on this idea.
Well, you don't have to sell too hard. You don't have to sell too hard.
Tell me why.
No, I'm all in on Tom Brady being a San Francisco 49er, and I disagree with Marcus. From a scheme standpoint, this is Tom Brady getting back to his roots and what we saw with him in the New England Patriots when he made Wes Welker and Julian Edelman and guys like Danny Amendola a lot of money by taking advantage of slot option, shorter passing routes, West Coast offense concepts. So I think Tom Brady would blend well with what Kyle Shanahan is trying to build. The offensive line is a concern, but hey, we got to tell Kyle Shanahan stop letting backup tight ends block premier edge rushers in the league. That's what got Brock Purdy knocked out. So I do think that San Francisco should be in the market for a veteran quarterback because this team is in win-now mode. Christian McCaffrey ain't getting younger. Trent Williams ain't getting younger. When you look at all of those guys on the offensive side of the ball, you have to take advantage of the window that you've created right now.
I'm with it. And then, Danny, just to sort of finish up the thought, everyone puts him in Vegas, which I understand because Josh McDaniels is there and they've got weapons. They have a terrible defense. If I'm Brady, they just won a Super Bowl a few years ago in Tampa because of his defense. San Francisco has that. I'm not sure what other options he may have that could match that.
Well, he has the option to retire and go make a bunch of money doing TV.
Fair enough.
That sounds pretty good. But look, if he wants to play, yes, I think San Francisco will be something that will appeal to him. I think San Francisco appeals to any quarterback that's looking for a home at this point. When you think about Kyle Shanahan, when you think about Trent Williams, when you think about all those yards after catch guys. So I think he has to look at it, and they probably have to look at him. What has to happen? I mean, look. We know that if Tom Brady knew what he wanted to effing do, he would have effing done it already. Right? We talked about this last week.
Right.
So he has to decide first whether he wants to keep playing, and we'll find out. But I don't think connecting him to San Francisco is wrong or irresponsible at all.
Okay, no, it's reckless.
I don't think it's even that reckless.
It's not that reckless, but we are recklessly speculating because I like the name of the feature, and we will continue to do it. All right, everyone stay where you are. I want to come back to that one as we go, but we got to talk about the other legend.